All right, welcome back to Anna Does Icons. Today we are going to be building these text fields that I have in front of us. Something to note when we're building components or just anything, right? We build like you would atomic design. So what that means is we're going to build out your atoms, your molecules, and then your organisms. So in this case, our asset/text field is going to be our molecules, and this text field, our main component with everything else in it, is going to be our organism. The text, the little icons separately, they are our atoms. They are built up to make our molecule and then our organism. For this, we're going to start with our text, and we're going to put input field text. And then what I do always is press Shift A. Now it's in a frame. So one thing to know about frames is how vital they are for your work streams. Notice how if I drag this out, it's going to be aligned to the left and the top. And if I drag this down, it stays there. Now, if I change this alignment to left align middle, it's going to be in the middle, and the bottom. No matter where I drag this, it's going to stay like that. For the sake of this design, we're going to make it middle aligned to the left because we always want this text to stay there. One thing else to note is your inner frame. So I know this isn't a frame, it's your text, but it technically has frame properties. So as you can see, you have hug. Now, if you set this to fill, that text would fully fill the container. So anything that you write here, it will go and fill that full container. Now, if it was set to hug, it will hug the text, but it won't fill the rest of the containers. If you've put in a lot of text, right, let's just use lorem ipsum for this and put 5 sentences. This inner frame is hugging the text, but nothing has changed with this outer frame. And if you send it to fill, what it will do is it will change the property to fill the entire outer frame. Instead of hugging the text, this is now associating the text to inside this outer frame. If you set this outer frame to hug, anything that is going inside this frame, the outer frame should always hug it. Meaning, if we change this text, right, move it this way, as you can see, that input field frame, the outer frame is hugging that text. Auto layout can be a little confusing, so don't beat yourself up if you don't understand it right away. It took me like a month to get it. A lot of it is just playing around, but make sure that you're playing around with the outer and inner frames that you're working within. I'm going to go back. This is input text. Notice this outside, this text frame didn't change because it's on fixed. What I want to set this to is fill, or again, hug. But for the sake of this, I'm going to set it to fill, and I'll show you why later. I have my input field. It's a little larger than I want, but what I'm going to do is I am going to use this outer frame, right, as the stroke. So this is now going to be my bounding box to this text, and it's going to be a part of the component. So I'm going to add a stroke to this. I'm going to make it center, and I'm going to make it, they just have regular personal colors in here. I'm going to make it gray 5, and I'm going to put a fill on it. The fill is going to be a little bit off-white. So now we have our input field text. Our input field text box. This is going to be used as a component itself, but also in our main component. Again, this is going to be our molecule. This is our organism. I know I want icons for my input field. As you can see here, I have a few icons. So what I'm going to do, I want to go home. I'm going to go to the community, and then I'm going to search hero icon set by icon duck. I'm going to press try it out, which is going to open it in another tab. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to press enter on all the icons, get rid of anything else. And I'm going to press Command X. What that is going to do is that is going to move the icons as components into my file. So those components are still components, and I can utilize the component set in my personal file. So I'm going to dump them here. Now we have a ton of icons that we can utilize. I'm going to start by grabbing this eyeball icon and I'm going to bring it up and over here. Now I haven't dropped it in the box yet because I'll explain why. So this icon we're going to utilize in our input field text box, and I'm just going to drag it in. Now because this is on auto layout and our text is left aligned and filled, our icon is always going to be all the way to the right, and it's going to be exactly positioned. Anytime I move this text field, make it bigger, smaller, wider, it should always stay in that exact same spot. And also to note, it is staying right aligned because this text is on fill. This text is filling up all the space between the icon and the text. If I set it to hug, that's going to move the eyeball icon right next to the text, and we don't want that. So I'm going to set it back to fill, and now we can see why that eyeball is staying right aligned. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to Command C, Command V. So I have two icons, and I'm going to move this one to the front. For the sake of this, let's just say we are going to use the front icon. And now we have two separate icons, left aligned, our text is filled, and then right aligned. Now, the reason we brought all these hero icons into our file is so that they are seen as components in our file. If I want to change this component, I can do it very easily. Select the component and change it, right? To /, to whatever you want to use. This is just really helpful to make things go quicker when you're designing. Now we have this input field with two icons in it, and I'm going to make that text field a little small, or the whole field a little smaller. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a active state. So this should be it's inactive. So I'm going to make this text a little lighter just to show that no one's typing in it yet. No one's done anything. This state's going to be our active state. I'm going to click in here and then add active to the end. Our next state is going to be our selected. So this is a state that, say if you're using a keyboard, if we press tab or shift, it will select the input text box and it will show that it's selected by having another outline over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift A. So that's going to add another frame. I'm going to name this the same thing. It's input field /selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this input field 3 paddings, horizontal and vertical. I'm going to put a stroke on it. I'm going to change the stroke, your inside plus the spacing between the outside. So this is going to be 4 rounding plus we put a 3 padding. So this one should be 7, not 6, but 7. Once that's done, I can change the input text color, the selected color to whatever your brand color may be, which could be blue. And I'm going to add one more stroke to that so it really stands out. The next state we're going to make is disabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull this one out, the inside, and then I'm going to change the text to a lighter gray. Please follow accessibility guidelines when building properly. And then just change this to disabled. We can even change our icons to a disabled gray. Again, depending what your use case is. Our last text field is going to be our error state. So what that means is we're going to probably make this red, the inner one a light red, and then we can make the text and icons red. Again, accessibility, please follow standards. Now we have our error state, our disabled, selective, active, and regular. This is default. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a component set out of this. So you can go up to the top, press on components, the drop down, and we're going to press create component set. This is called input field. It took from the first part of the name. And we just want to make sure these states are properly named. So as we know, we have multiple states, and in here they have taken because we named them properly. Active, default, disabled. I'm going to move the default up. Default, active, disabled, error, selected. And I'm going to change this property 1 to state. Some things I like to do, I think are really important, is make the text field a text property. So all you have to do is select the text, press that little bullseye, target, and that selects every property that's alike. So it's going to select all the input text. This one, you're probably going to have to select yourself. But now they're all selected. And as you can see here, this content says input text, and we're going to name this text. It's just a component property, a text field. That way, when we go to use this component, we can change the text very easily. So we're going to create that property. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make these front icons. We're going to make these Booleans. So see, there's this layer, create Boolean property. We're going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to say left icon. It's going to be true. So it's going to be always showing. And then we're going to do the same thing with our right icon. We're going to create another property. It's going to be right icon, true. Let's say we want to change these eyeball icons in a Jiffy. We don't want to have to triple click into them. So what we're going to do is we're going to create instant swap properties. So I'm going to double click the icon. I'm going to select all 4 matching layers plus this one. For some reason, it never gets selected. And we're going to name this instant swap property. We're going to create an instant swap property for left icon instance, and you can even select the other icons that you would usually like to select it with, or you can tap them all. Let's just say these first 4 are the icons that we'll always be using for the left side. Same thing for the right side. We're going to create another property. This is going to be right icon instance. Same thing here. Let's say we want to use these for the right side, and then create that property. So now that we have our input field, we're going to create our full text field. This is going to have our input field, a title, maybe a link, and an icon under it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our input field. We're going to pull it out by holding Option. We're going to put a text field on top of it. So I'm going to type input. I'm going to bold it. I'm going to put it in a frame, which is going to be auto layouted because I'm pressing Shift A. This is going to be title. I'm going to change the padding here to 4. Put that where I want it. I'm going to put one more over here. This is going to be our text link. So I'm going to change this and this to middle. This one's going to be middle right aligned because it's on the right side, and this is going to say add new. And then we are going to change the text. We're going to put it on regular, change the text to, let's say, a blue. You can make it smaller. The next thing we're going to do is just change the link title to link. And then we're going to add one more here, which is going to be for the error state. I'm going to take the icon that I want to use, throw it in that auto layouted box or frame, and then put name is required. Change this text to red. Change the icon. Let's see if there's an exclamation point. There is. Change it to red. Oops. So what we're going to do to build this component is build out line by line. So these top line text fields are going to be put into a frame, Shift A, name this to title and link. And then notice how there's a big gap, right? We want it to fill the space between appropriately. So you can press space between, and you'll see what happens when we put this in an actual component. And this last one is going to stay by itself. So all we're going to do is select all of these frames, right? Link is in a frame. Our text field component is a frame. And then our top title and link, we're going to press Shift A, right? Name this text box. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this one to fill. And we're going to set this one to fill as well. Space between. So what that means is when we move this, right, that is going to when we move this whole frame, Okay, now we have everything in a text box frame. I want to make sure everything is how I want it to be. I'm going to make this top frame space between. I'm going to make our text field component fill, and then our name component is also going to be filled. So what that means is if I make this smaller or bigger, everything's going to act appropriately. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to make this a component. Press Command K. We have our text box component. I want to change the input text or have that be able to be changed easily. Let's say this is going to be title. Add new. We're going to make same thing. Add new can be a text field, and it can also be a Boolean because sometimes we don't want this on. So I'm going to take layer, show link is true because this is our link. We're going to keep that. And then same here with our error message. All we have to do here is same thing. We can add another text field, error. And then we want to make the whole thing a Boolean as well. So layer, show error, true. So now we have everything we need. The last thing we want to do is go to properties, press plus, and we're going to expose our properties from our nested instance. So what that means when we expose properties from our nested instances is talking about our input field. So all of the properties that we put in input fields, such as the input text, the eyeball icons, left icon, right icon, that should show now. So if we were to press option, take this out, right? We only see the properties to change for the input. We don't see it for the input field. So again, we're going to go to our text box. We're going to go to expose nested properties from nested instances, and we're going to select input field. So if we go back to this, now we have every type of property you can create. We have our text properties, we have our Boolean properties, and now we have instant swap. So you can go in, quickly change the icon that you want to for your different states. And again, this stuff is here to make your design so much faster. You can really iterate really quickly, change things, and build. And again, the most important part, I think, is to implement this stuff into your design systems in your components, because it streamlines every other designer's work down the line. Thank you all again so much for joining my Anna Does Icons rendition of components, frames, etc. We can go deeper into frames in another video. This was just a very high level, but thank you again for building this text property with me. I hope you enjoyed it.